Welcome to Tentative Title with Tim. This is a podcast about creativity, about process, about filmmaking, and about screenwriting. Welcome, everybody, back to the podcast. Once again, I hope everybody out there is doing well. And, the topic that I wanted to talk about today was just that I think we have to allow our characters to be who they are. And this is a bit of an extension of what I think I was talking about last week, where I was talking about the Book of Boba Fett and how it seemed like the character, even though we didn't know much about Boba Fett in terms of the movies. There's a lot in like the comic books and the books that had come out. They kind of fleshed out that character a bit. But it just seemed like the character was making choices and doing things that were quite dumb and contrary to who that character was set up to be. And in the last episode, we got to see more of what I thought that character should be. And in fact, I was watching the fourth episode, and I thought, why wasn't this the first episode? Why did we have to slog through 3 episodes where it just seemed like nothing was really happening? And it's not to say that character didn't. There's a scene where he hunts down this biker gang, and he kind of goes to the bar, and he starts like beating up some people, and that was a cool scene, and that was something where I was like, okay, that seems in line with who this character is at this point. But I finally got a sense of his motivation of what he wants in this 4th episode, and I thought, why didn't we just get this at the beginning? Like he crawls out of the Sarlacc pit, and he saves Fennec from, because she is attacked in Mandalorian, and she's kind of like left for dead, and he, saves her essentially. And so I was like, why didn't we just start here? Because now I really care about these 2 characters. I care about their relationship. I care about what's going to happen next. But I had to get through like 3 other episodes in order to feel that way. And I know, a lot of people are enjoying it up to this point, but for me, there wasn't a hook. There wasn't anything that was getting me excited about the show. And I've been giving it a chance every week. I've been trying to have an open mind and say, this is maybe this is the change that is happening with the character, and let's follow where it goes. But it was tough. It was really tough, and it's not over yet. But who knows? Maybe at the end I'll say, yeah, that journey was worth it. It was completely. It makes sense now in the full scope of what the first season was trying to do. So, in line with that, in line with thinking about that character, I started to watch some older films over the past week, and I was actually not that I was surprised, but it was kind of refreshing to see these older films. So 2 in particular. I saw the Defiant Ones with Tony Curtis and Sidney Poitier, and I saw Inherit the Wind with now I'm blanking on the name. Spencer Tracy, and Gene Kelly was also in it. But it's just there were 2 kind of like classic pieces of cinema. One of them, the Defiant Ones, dealt with like racism and criminality. It's basically the entire film is Tony Curtis and Sidney Poitier, and they are chained together and they escape, and they hate each other. Like Tony Curtis doesn't doesn't like black people. Essentially, he thinks he's better than them, and like Sidney Poitier is just like, I'm just trying to survive. I'm trying to get back to my family, but this life has been kind of messed up, and here I am in prison, and I'm just trying to do my time so I can get out. And seeing these two powerhouse actors have scenes together where they are tethered together and they hate each other, like, that's lightning. That is an electrical performance from both of them, because the filmmakers and the writers, they don't hold back. They allow everything to fly. They allow every kind of language slur to be like, they just throw it at each other. And it's not that I like to see, people arguing or hating each other, but in terms of like the drama, it made sense. When you discover who these characters are and where they come from, you empathize with both of them, even though you may despise one over the other at first, or you get to kind of like get a sense of like, oh, I understand where they're coming from. That's why they act the way they do. That's why they have a chip on their shoulder. But you wouldn't be able to have scenes like this nowadays. Like, I don't think it would be possible. I think that the outside world would take a look at these two actors and say, how the heck can you allow these actors to say these words? These are hurtful. This is hurtful language. How the heck did the writers allow, how could they write this? How could the director allow this to happen? There would be this uproar over what is happening in this film. But it works great because of the fact that it allows the characters to be genuine. It allows them to say things that character would say. Now, they're not politically correct. They're not, they're not woke, I guess you could say. They're not in they're not, it's not proper language. It's who they are, and allowing them to speak the way that they would speak is just like, wow, I believe those characters. I'm into the story because I believe that those characters would say those things. And still, it's a movie from like the 1950s, and it's still, obviously it still feels like a movie. You can tell that you obviously, like, if you know those actors, you're like, those are those actors. They don't do much to like hide who they are. They're movie stars, essentially at the time. And so to be able to just watch these two actors have the freedom to approach a scene with honesty and with their characters, it's like it was so refreshing. And so with that, there was, I also watched Inherit the Wind, which is about it was based on a true story about how there was a science teacher in a deeply religious town who had tried to teach evolution, and how there was like this big uproar. A lot of people didn't like it, and so the whole idea behind that was that he was just basically saying, look, I want to teach science. I want to be able to have the freedom. The basic theme was like, I want to have the ability to teach freedom of thought, and we should allow to talk about things that are controversial, even though we should just be able to do that, because that's what science is all about. It's all about posing a question. It's not about it being political. It's not about it being religious. It's not about any of that. It's just about, okay, this is my question. Now let's try to figure out if the question that I have in my hypothesis, if we can find the answer, or if it allows for society, for man to kind of like to step out of what they know, because there's a lot we don't know. There's still a lot we don't know, which is really, I mean, it's crazy to think about, but there are still tons of things in the universe that we have no idea about. And in a way that's a great thing. It's a great thought to have, because of the fact that it means that we don't know everything, and that we can kind of open ourselves up to discovering new things. But I think it scares a lot of people because, like, we know a lot already, and so it's easy to kind of like reason our way into thinking we know everything, or that we have all the information about everything in the world and in the universe. But that's obviously not the case. And every week, you can find an article about something new that's being discovered, or about, like some ruins that were unearthed that kind of changed our perception of history. There's always something happening. There's always new information being discovered. And, that's really exciting. And so this trial happened, and it actually was turned into a play first, which like is a great, if you got some great actors who are performing this, like it's a really, like if you get a chance to see it on stage, I recommend it. But it's all about like the pride of a town that thinks that they know everything, and that they think that if you go one way, that you're kind of like accepted into the community. And then there's this science teacher who is essentially like, and you learn his backstory as well, like why he is not he's not completely like religious like everybody else. That he has a backstory of like where he started to kind of question his faith, and how he was like, yeah, I want to believe, but I also know that there are things that we don't know, and I also want to explore that as well. And the reason why I was watching that was because I remember it as the lawyer who is defending the school teacher as somebody who like was also religious. Like he believed very staunchly in the religion of the town. And his whole point was that even though I believe the same thing you believe, I also believe in being able to allow like questions to be brought up about what we know. And I also think that freedom of thought is way more important than, than like holding true to like our certain way of following this religion. And it just reminded me of like what's happening today. It just seems like if you have a differing opinion about something, that it no longer becomes a conversation. It becomes how can we browbeat the other person into believing what we believe, and if they don't, then we can shun them. We can throw them out of whatever community. We can kind of like sideline them. And I was just like, wow, this play was written like 50 years ago, 50, maybe more than that. Like it was written a long time ago, and there were still scenes in in the movie that and in the play that like speaks so much to what's happening now. And I thought, oh my gosh, like we haven't even like how far have we really come? Like, I don't know if we've actually gone as far as we think we have. Like, there's still so many things that we don't know. And, like, I think if that play or if that movie was put on today, that I don't know if those characters would be allowed to say and do the things that they do in that, in that movie. And it got me to think once again about like, well, why can't we allow characters to be who they are and to say what they want to say, and to just genuinely be who they are. And I have to say, like, it's probably because of the corporation that is, owns the whatever studio that is making, the movie or the show. It's like it all comes down to some kind of corporate overhead that says, well, we really don't want people to think that we're a bad company, so you need to cut all the things that could potentially be a problem when people watch this. And that's really sad. Like, I don't like the fact that that's happening, because one, is short-sighted. Two, if you actually leaned into characters and allowing them to do what they were made to do, like at the inception of those characters, like to allow them to fit into the plot, to be who they are, they actually will tell the story much better, and they'll allow for the audience to get the point. Like, but if you stifle a character from being able to do and say what they need to do for the plot, then it's very painful for the audience. Like, it really is hard to watch something when you get a sense that something was tampered with. There was some kind of like note from in the writer's room or something, where it was just it seemed like it was based on fear than it was on, oh, well, this is going to make the story better. This character can't do this or say this because it's going to make the story better. It's more, it seems like it's a kind of like it just comes from fear, and that just really sucks. Because like I've said it before, I got my start in the theater, and if you have read, any play, if like, there are some terrible things that happen in a lot of plays. Like, there are some just very screwed up things that happen. And, like, if you were to cut some of those things, if you were to kind of like, try to make it so that the characters weren't able to do and say what was essential for that plot, those shows would not be as iconic as they would be. They wouldn't have been as shocking. They wouldn't have been as truthful if the playwright wasn't allowed to dig deep and to essentially say to the audience, these are terrible people, and I'm going to show you why they're terrible people, but maybe they're redeemable. Maybe there's something there, like depending on the play. Like, so it's like maybe there's some kind of revelation that changes a character, but you have to see them at their worst before you can show them being redeemed. There's so much that needs to happen that you have to show a character sometimes at their worst and saying the worst possible things in order for that change to happen. And I think a part of it too, you like, corporate overreach, sure, some kind of mandate of like, well, you can't have characters like this because, it looks bad. Okay. That's probably part of it. But the other part of it is simply that I don't know if audiences have the patience to see a character grow from being a terrible person to being a good person, or from being a good person to being a terrible person. Now, there are examples like, a lot of people bring up Breaking Bad. Like, that was a very successful show, and it showed a guy who was, he was a good guy, but he got cancer and he needed money. And so he was doing whatever he needed to do to make sure that he could get some money for his family. And that led him down, dealing drugs and being a drug lord and all this kind of stuff. And so it allowed that series allowed for somebody who was essentially a good person to become really terrible and bad and evil to a certain extent. But I don't know why that show was given license to do that, and yet some other shows are not allowed. And we're in a completely different world. Obviously, things have changed in a very short amount of time. I don't know. Like, it just feels like people can't handle dramatic stuff anymore because, maybe what's dramatic is pointing too much towards reality, or reality is too much like fiction. I don't know, but we're in this weird place where it's hard to find a story out there that allows a character to be very genuine with their choices, to kind of feel like like they're not having some kind of like installment bait, I guess you could say, where they're like, well, we're gonna give you half a story so you'll show up for the next installment, or yeah, we're gonna give you this cliffhanger, but we're not really gonna finish the show, so sorry, we didn't, you can't see the rest of it because, well, we got canceled. Like it just, there's so many, I don't want to say they're stupid, but it's just like people are so willing now to kind of like jump on the problems with everything instead of just allowing for like even if you see a character at their darkest hour, like being able to allow them to have that arc and that journey, and not place it at the foot of the creators or the writers, in saying, well, you're just doing this because that's who you are. And it's like, well, sometimes that might be true, where it's like, yeah, can you just write the character that is the character and not write the character that you think they should be, or that is a reflection of you? Just write the character. Like, people will get the humanity. People will see the lesson through the character's actions. It doesn't have to be a preaching, like they don't have to be preached to. It's just let the character be the character and let them do what they're going to do. Let them make those choices and allow those consequences of those choices to be real and to be meaningful, and to not kind of like pull your punches when it comes to like what would actually happen, or what should happen. Because like that's another part of it too. Like sometimes a character gets like this plot armor, and okay, I'm guilty of this all the time, where I'm like, well, this is the main character. They need to kind of survive with like all the turmoil that I'm putting them through. And so, so sometimes just without thinking about it, I'll just say, well, the character gets out of this situation because I need them to get out of this situation, instead of allowing the situation to kind of like cause more problems for the character. And then even if there is like a close call where they're like they almost die, it's like still building in like that either I need to change the scenario because there's no way that anybody could survive, or I need to to make it so that like the character is going to survive, but it makes sense, because like that's just the kind of genre that I'm writing at this point, like where the main character is going to survive. But if they're not going to survive, then I need to make sure that that they don't, and that the way that they die is actually true to that character, and not stupid, not a dumb way that they die. That it's like it makes sense and it's impactful. So I wanted to kind of continue on this conversation about character, because I think we've lost something over the last couple of years, where we're scared to allow characters to be genuine, and for the simple fact that we think that like if somebody finds out that we wrote a character that does something terrible, that somehow that's a reflection on us. And it's like, no, not really. Like sometimes you can write a character that has nothing to do with yourself, has no connection to you, with the exception of them just being human, or like having certain emotions or reactions to things that are universal to everybody. But you can still write a character that's terrible, and they don't have to be a reflection of yourself, but yet for some reason people will look at that and say, were you just writing yourself into that? It's like, no, that's not me at all. Like, that has nothing to do with me. It just, that's where the character was taking me. That's what the character wanted to do. That's what the character wanted to say. That's who they are. That's built into their DNA when they first walked onto the scene. When I first had them, do something in this scene or say something, that's who they are. It has no like reflection on who I am. So, I don't know. Like, it's weird how things like that kind of like pop up where people make these false connections for some reason. And it's like, why? Just enjoy it for what it is. Don't look too deep into it. Enjoy the story for what it is. And, like, if the story is about deep thought and trying to like, it brings up themes and conversations, that's great. Yes, talk about that. But sometimes it's like, when you're writing something, you don't know what the themes are. You don't know exactly what you're trying to say overall. But the characters are doing things and saying things, and they're expressing ideas in a certain way that you don't expect, and they are the ones who are bringing the theme. They are the ones who are bringing what the meaning of the piece is, and like, you can kind of get out of the way and just say, this was something deep in the back of my mind that maybe that has been like kicking around for a bit. And these characters are expressing it. These characters are having the conversation. They are arguing about something that I care about. Okay, that's the connection to me. That's what this is about. But I'm not trying to preach. I'm not trying to put something in to skew the conversation or to get people to believe a certain way. Like, that's the powerful part about drama, is that, like, you can talk about controversial subjects and you don't actually have to have an answer at the end. Like, you just need to pose the question. You just need to put it out there so that people can talk about it. It gives them license to talk about it. It gives them the perspective of one side over the other, like, it just allows for that to happen. Because let's face it, a lot of the most pressing issues that we are facing today, they have answers on both sides. And both can be very valid, and it all depends on like who has the better, I guess, argument. And even that, like, when some, like, that's why I love court dramas. Like, they always bring in the perspective of the person who's who's guilty. And then it's like, yeah, that person did this, and this. They're a terrible person. And then you have the defense who comes in and says, well, let me tell you the other side of the story. The other side of the story is this. And it completely can change your perception of that person. You at first you think they're a monster, and then all of a sudden the narrative switches and you're like, oh, wow. That person is very sympathetic. They were, they did something that they thought was right, or they were afraid, or something happened that was out of their control, and then you get a better sense of what actually happened. And I think, like, if we, in the narratives that we write, if we have that perspective of, I'm not trying to try to have a one-sided narrative. I'm trying to show it from multiple sides, because that is the most interesting. We're going to have so much better drama. We're going to have so much better, like, movies and television. And I know television is killing it right now. Television is doing exactly that, because they have all this time to tell a very intricate story with very dynamic characters, and it's killing it right now. And that's great. Storytelling is winning in that space. So let's bring it back to movies. Let's bring it into other forms of our art, and allow the characters to tell the story, to have a perspective, even if that perspective from your opinion is wrong. Tell that perspective anyway, because it's important, so that the character that has the perspective you do agree with can come in and say, yeah, but what about this? What about this? What about this? That That's exciting. That will captivate your audience. That will get people showing up over and over and over again to watch your movie, to watch your show, because it's bringing up the question. It is talking through the points. It is not having a skewed perspective. It's just saying, hey, the world that we live in is complicated. So let's show the conversation. Let's show the different perspectives, and then maybe you might be able to like come away with watching this with a deeper understanding of how flawed certain things are, or how how things work. That's all you have to do as a storyteller, is just tell the story. Show the characters as they are. Let them say and do what they're supposed to do. And that's it. You don't have to overthink it. You don't have to, bend over backwards in order to tell a story sometimes. Just let it be. Just let the story be. Let the characters be. And the audience will love you for it. They will love you, and they will reward you with watching whatever it is you made over and over and over and over again, because it came from a genuine place. It told a genuine story. It allowed the characters to be genuine. So, if you guys haven't seen Inherit the Wind, there are many versions of it. I saw the one with Spencer Tracy. That's a great one. There's another one with George C. Scott and Jack Lemmon. That's another good one. And also, like, because of the recent passing of Sidney Poitier, I wanted to start watching a lot of his films, and they are free on Prime, on Amazon Prime, so you can watch a lot of them there. And the Defiant Ones is it just like I said, you're watching two powerhouse actors chained together, acting the crap out of like their characters and being genuine. It's electrifying to watch. And I suggest checking out his other stuff as well. Just like all those old movies, there's great stories being told, and it's just, that's storytelling. Just storytelling. That's all I'm trying to say. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening. I hope this wasn't too much of a ramble. I hope I gave you some food for thought. Just watch some great stuff, create some great things from what inspires you, and share it with the world. That's what we're here to do, because we're not going to be here forever. Just make things to entertain, make things to be thought-provoking, and you'll have a legacy that you can lean back on, when you're old and gray, and say, yeah, I told some damn good stories, and they're going to be around forever. So, all right, guys, I'll talk to you on the next one. If you'd like to connect with me, there is an email for the podcast. It's tentative.title.with.tim.podcast @gmail.com. There's also a Twitter account. The handle is @title_Tim. There's also a Facebook page where you can post questions, or you can connect with me there. Thank you guys for listening. I'll talk to you on the next one.